Welcome. I am Kevin Delaney, and I'm coming to you today live from Los Angeles, California. I have a very important message I want to talk to you today about. It's the idea that we are today living in what I call the era of scams. We are living in the age of scams. And this is something that every single one of us needs to be aware of. We need to be cognizant of, and we need to, in a certain sense, take some kind of steps to protect ourselves, because it really is a different world out there. It's not like it was certainly 20 years ago, 30 years ago, hell, even 10 years ago. There are all kinds of scams out there today that any one of us can either fall prey to, or at the very least, we can find ourselves tripped up by. And that's what I want to talk about. And this whole discussion was spurred by an experience that I had last week. Some of you may have received this same email. It was a spam email, which normally I never pay any attention to, but this one caught my attention because in the subject line it had my first name and it had a password. That was not a recent password, but it was a password that I've used in the past. And it's the kind of thing that I never told anybody that password. I never shared it with anybody. And it's the question of how in the hell do they get that password? How does this stranger who's emailing me know what my password is? So it got me to open the email. And the email itself is a bit different from the kind of scams that we've seen in the past, in that it's an extortion email. Now, I saw through it pretty quickly. It's pretty obvious to me, at least, that this was not something legit. But I also saw how somebody who maybe wasn't quite as savvy as I am with these things could absolutely fall for it, could absolutely think that this is a real thing and get very scared. What the scammer was saying was basically, we've hacked into your whole computer. We have gained access to your computer. We've downloaded this malware software, and we have everything. We have all your files. We have all your information. We have all your passwords. And the fact that they actually include a real password of yours, or at least a password that you've used in the past, could make you think for a second that maybe they really have hacked my computer. In fact, they haven't. But it's an extortion attempt. They claim that they have hacked into your webcam, and they have very embarrassing video of you, and they're now going to share this video with all your friends and all your family and all your coworkers unless you pay them money. And of course, they want Bitcoin now, and this is a whole new development. I'll talk about this in a moment. Bitcoin can be sent very easily, very anonymously, and they want a steep payment. Otherwise, they say we're going to release all this stuff. So I want to just say a few words about this, because I really think every single one of us, whether you use the internet a lot, or actually even if you don't use the internet at all, we all need to be aware of this, and we all kind of need to take a step back and realize in a lot of ways we're living in a different world today. Let's understand something here. The fact now that we're all online, and we have an online life, and we have social media, and we're connected with so many people, and it's so easy to send and receive messages, has changed our lives, and it's changed the landscape in a lot of ways. Some of which we may not even realize until maybe we get an email like the one that I described just a moment ago. One thing that you have to understand is there are criminal gangs today in parts of the world that you have probably never been to and probably never will visit. I'm talking about very impoverished third world countries and areas of third world countries that are essentially lawless. Okay? They may have a police force. They may have some guys who wear some shabby blue uniforms and call themselves police, but in fact, in many cases, those police either don't do anything, or they are in cahoots with the criminals, or hell, they may even be the criminals. There was a story on ABC about, again, what they call sextortion scams. A lot of them now are operating out of the Philippines. And the ABC crew went to the Philippines, and they supposedly tagged along with a group of police who were trying to bust these criminals. And lo and behold, they get to this one place where the criminals are supposed to be operating out of, and all the criminals are gone. They left like 10 minutes before the police showed up.
They raid 6 addresses, searching for evidence.
This the Wi-Fi use. They use the Wi-Fi.
But the suspects are gone, moments before. Rice is still cooking on the stove.
Just ran away, carrying all the laptops there.
So you missed them by minutes?
Yes, missed by minutes.
The reality is, I'm sure in many cases, the police probably tipped them off. Again, these are in many cases not individual people who are just looking to make some extra money. These are criminal gangs. They're very organized, and they're actually a huge they make a huge contribution to the economy of the areas where they are. I know in Nigeria, for example, people have said that scamming is practically Nigeria's gross national product now. So what does this mean for us? Again, it's easy for us to look at this. You know, for a long time, people kind of made jokes about those Nigerian prince scam emails. You know, they're ridiculous. And, you know, what kind of an idiot would ever fall for these things? The scams are getting trickier. They're getting smarter. They're getting more clever. And they're getting a hell of a lot more malevolent. And there are people who've committed suicide. I don't mean to sound at all like I'm making light of this, because people have actually killed themselves. Even just the fear, again, that there are embarrassing pictures of them that are going to be shared with all their friends and family and whatnot. You know, they made a dumb mistake. And maybe they did go in front of their webcam or whatnot. And now somebody's got pictures of them, and they're literally extorting them. And the thing is, too, these criminals, they stop at nothing. So if you pay them money, they just want more money. They just keep asking for money and threatening and threatening and threatening. It's getting very, very malicious, very malevolent. And again, people have killed themselves over this. But the point about the criminal gangs that you have to understand is that these are people who are operating in lawless parts of the world. Take a moment and think about that. People in lawless areas of third world countries can contact you, can contact your family, your friends, and nobody really knows who they are or where they're operating out of, and they essentially are not subject to any laws. Think about that. These people can do things to you, they can threaten you, they can extort you, that if you did that, you would be subject to criminal prosecution. You could go to jail. But these people won't. In fact, there was a case, you can look it up on YouTube. There was a video there, a young man who did commit suicide. I think he was 21 years old. And his parents were on the Today Show with Megyn Kelly. And there was some investigation as to who it was who had gotten in touch with him. And they determined that it was somebody in the Philippines. But the police were saying, there's nothing we can do. They even had the chief of police in the area where they live saying, we tried to pursue this, but the police in the Philippines wouldn't cooperate with us.
The local sheriff's department says that they traced the blackmailer back to the Philippines, but the authorities there, they say, would not cooperate. We spoke with Sheriff Robert Decker of the Millard County Sheriff's Office regarding Cindy's criticism that she feels not enough was done to investigate her son's death. And here is what the sheriff had to say.
I'm sure she wanted to go farther into it than we could. I'm sure she wanted to go right back and even have us go to the Philippines, but without cooperation and more information there, we didn't do that. We couldn't do that.
So in other words, these people get off scot-free because in the area where they are, there's no repercussions. There's no punishment. They can truly operate with impunity. Think about this. These people can do whatever they want, and yet if you or I did it, we'd be in prison. So this is what the internet is opening up to us. And I'm telling you, this is only the beginning. And it's not just the internet. It's also the phone. One thing every single one of us has to realize, and if you have elderly relatives, you say, oh, you know, my grandmother, she's not on the internet, but she has a phone. And I've had elderly relatives in my family scammed, because a lot of elderly people, they're still in that mindset of, oh, you know, the phone rings, and of course you have to answer the phone and see who it is, and whoever it is, or whoever they claim to be, you know, you believe it. If it's Mr. McGillicuddy from the bank, you know, oh, Mr. McGillicuddy, oh, yes, oh, what do you need? You know, you need you need to verify my credit card number? Sure, let me get that for you. Because again, once upon a time, if somebody called claiming they were from your bank, then they probably really were. But today, you don't know who that person is. You have to have the policy now, if you don't know who that person is, by looking at the caller ID, you do not answer the phone. You do not talk to somebody that you don't know on the phone if they're calling you. If you call them, it's a different story. And I hate to sound so extreme about this, but I'm telling you folks, this is the tip of the iceberg. Things are about to get really, really, really bad. And this is kind of a personal issue with me. Like I said, I have had elderly relatives scammed out of significant amounts of money through the phone. But also, you know, it's funny, this character now that I voice match, Edna Mode, people have put out this kind of fan theory that Edna is, even though she's, you know, clearly a good guy in the movies, that she's secretly a bad guy. And I've often thought that, you know, Edna is not a bad guy, but boy, if she wanted to be, she could be. And I often feel the same way about myself. You know, the world is very lucky that I'm an upstanding citizen, because boy, if I wasn't, I tell you, my mind thinks of a lot of things. And I've been surprised that scammers haven't thought of some of these things. I have thought for years that the real money, if you really want to scam people, forget the diet pills, forget the erectile dysfunction pills. The real money is in extortion. The real money is in blackmail, because fear motivates people to do all kinds of things. If somebody is really genuinely petrified that their entire life is about to be ruined, their entire reputation is about to be destroyed, believe me, they'll send somebody $1,900. I've thought this for years. And the thing with the password, just by the way, you might be wondering, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I received an email with an actual password, albeit an old one, in the subject line. You might say, well, how in the hell did they get my password? Well, there have been all these hacks over the years. There's a website, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but it's called Have I Been, and then the last word is PWNED. It's either owned or pwned or however you pronounce it. HaveIBeenPwned.com. If you go to that website, you can get a list of all the hacks over the years, all the websites, including some major ones, including LinkedIn, for example, that have been the subject of major hacks. People's names, email addresses, and in many cases, passwords have been exposed. And all this information today, it gets bought and sold and traded on what's called the dark web, which is basically like the black market of the internet. And in fact, they have a feature there where you can punch in an email address, and you can see if that email address comes up in any of the hacked information that's come out of there. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking when you see these hacks. And you know, these hacks, they happen all the time. You know, your information gets exposed, and then it gets into the hands of scammers. But these scammers, you know, they will use a hacked password to make you fear that they really have the goods on you. And I've thought that for the longest time, and I never said anything about it because I didn't want to make anybody do that. I didn't want to give anybody ideas. But now that they've done it, I can talk about this. I have thought for the longest time, you know, the obvious thing is if you get somebody's username and password or their email address and password, that you use it to try to log in to something, right? I mean, what else would you use it for? But what if you told that person, we got everything, we hacked your whole life practically, and here's proof. You know, you don't have to show them everything. All you have to show them is one little piece. You know, it's like when kidnappers kidnap somebody and they cut off the person's ear. You don't have to send them the whole person in the mail. Just cut off a piece of their body and send it to them. That's the proof right there. And it can seem like proof, you know, that they have, you know, they have the goods on you. So they don't even have to actually have the goods on you. They just have something that makes it look like they have the goods on you. And that can invoke a lot of fear in somebody. And I'll be honest with you, when I first got that email, it freaked me out for, you know, a good 30 seconds or so. As the funny thing is as I actually read the email, it became more and more apparent that it was a scam. But when I first saw that email and I saw that password in the subject line, it freaked me out. I don't want to see my password in an email sent to me from somebody I don't know. That can be very, very disconcerting. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to scare people. And I have thought for the longest time that that's got to be where the real money is. Scare the hell out of people and then basically extort them. You know, the whole idea of blackmail, I know to a lot of people, it's kind of a distant concept to them. You know, they feel like, well, blackmail, you know, because we see this in movies or stories, whatnot, you know, the person who's cheating on their spouse and somebody gets the goods on them, right? You know, we know that you're cheating on your spouse and we have photos, and they actually like send them the photos. And they say, if you don't pay up, we're going to send these photos to your spouse. And so a lot of people think, well, but I'm not doing anything wrong. You know, I'm not cheating on anybody. I don't have anything to hide. So therefore, I'm immune to all this. Really? Are you? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Could somebody find out who your family and friends are and threaten them, threaten their lives? Could somebody call you on the phone and say you pay up within the next 10 minutes, or this person who is a loved one is going to suffer calamitous consequences? Do you see how in this day and age, with the internet, with social media, it's very easy for somebody to, at the very least, cause you a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. Who the hell is this person? How do they know that this is my son or my daughter or my mother or my sister or whomever? You know, there's a lot of possibility here. See, this is the problem with modern technology, is it allows us to do wonderful things, and it brings us all together, unfortunately, in some ways, because it also allows the bad guys to do incredible things, and it brings the bad guys to us in ways that they couldn't have before. Again, if somebody was going to blackmail you, think about this. Again, they'd have to have they'd have to have knowledge of you cheating on your spouse or whatever, which means they'd probably have to be somewhere in your vicinity. Then, of course, there was the whole issue of getting the money to them. How the hell would you get money to a blackmailer other than physically dropping cash somewhere? You know, this was always a problem. You know, you had to put the cash in a bag, and you had to put the bag in a specific garbage can in the park, you know, at 2 a.m. or whatnot. And then, of course, there's always the chance that the police might be there or whatnot. Somebody has to physically go to that trash can and take the money out. Well, I got news for you, folks. There's something today called Bitcoin. And I'm not a huge, Bitcoin person. I don't know a lot about it, but from what I understand, it's relatively easy to send and receive money largely anonymously through Bitcoin. And again, this changes the game. This changes the game for criminals, because now they can demand ransom, or they can demand, you know, whatever you want to call that, their extortion money, and the money can be received by them basically anonymously. What happens is, and if you got that email that I'm talking about, you probably saw they have a Bitcoin code, and that's all it is. It's just a Bitcoin code. And again, you know, it's a wonderful thing to be able to send and receive money easily, but you always have to question with these things, in what ways might we be empowering the wrong people. So, you know, I was thinking when I started this video, and this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, I don't want to scare people with this, but actually, the more I think about it, I think we should be scared. I don't think we should live in fear, but I really do think that we are at a point now where there is so much possibility for bad things to happen. I think we do need to be a little bit scared. A little bit. Not fearful, you know what I mean. But we should not be taking this lightly. One thing we need to do absolutely is be very, very careful about what we share online. Be extremely careful always about passwords, about logins. I mean, God help us, if somebody really wanted to do damage to you and harm to you, if they had, you know, your username and password, like for your email or for your Facebook for that matter, they really could. They could do a lot of harm. It's kind of shocked me that most of these scammers have not really done very much. I mean, usually if your email gets hacked, what ends up happening is all the people on your email list, they get ads for diet pills or something like that. Or it's kind of this endless loop thing. It's like a link for them to click, and then their address book gets hacked, but nothing really bad ever happens. And I have a feeling that all of that is about to change. I really do believe, I think we're going to start seeing more and more and more of this extortion, blackmail attempts, threats, because like I said, a lot of the people who are doing this, these are criminal gangs. They're in not just third world countries, but they're in remote areas of third world countries and largely lawless areas of third world countries. Areas where the police don't do anything about them. So they can basically do whatever they want. And if you as an American or a Canadian, or you're in England or wherever, you get scammed and you go to the police, they're going to say, there's only so much that we can do here because the people who are doing this, they're out of our jurisdiction and the local government won't cooperate. So that really puts us into a bad kind of position with all of this. Let me just say too, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, and I know that some people will not be happy with me to say this, but for God's sake, kids should not be on the internet. At the very least, it needs to be very much supervised. I'm all for kids having cell phones insofar as they can call if they need help, or if the parent needs to reach them quickly, but they should not have access to any kind of social media. There is no reason for youngsters to have Facebook, to have any kind of social media. Come on. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that somebody could find out information about your kids and who their friends are and where they go to school and all this stuff that, when a lot of us were kids, how would anybody find that out? Especially somebody in another country, how would somebody in Pakistan find that out? It's ridiculous. But today, anybody can. Don't take this lightly. This is coming. This has been a long time coming. It's kind of been a good thing that a lot of these scammers aren't real bright, and that they're also not really original. They're always kind of copying each other. But I'm telling you, I think things are changing. I think one or two of them has wised up, and they've started to realize how lucrative threats and extortion can be, and now the rest of them are following suit. This thing with the email, with the password in the subject, it has been a big story. I know it's been reported on a number of news sites. A lot of people have gotten that email. And incidentally, with that Bitcoin code, you can actually track it and see if anybody has actually sent money to via that Bitcoin code, and apparently people have. So they've tracked some of these Bitcoin codes that have appeared in these scam emails, and people are sending $1,900. Now, maybe not a lot, but again, you wonder, what percentage of people fall for it enough to send the money, but then how many people maybe just experience a lot of worry and concern and anxiety? If some people fall for it, then probably a lot of people at least think it might be true. It might be real. And let me just add too, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. There are, again, these what they call sextortion scams where they actually will trick somebody into going on camera and thinking that it's just a private chat with somebody, getting them to do things in front of the camera that they think is only being seen by that other person, but in fact it's being recorded, and then they're extorted. They're told, we're going to send this. And that's where some of these poor people who, have committed suicide, that's how they've been caught. I think there's a door that's opening here that is very ugly. It's very, like I said, malevolent. And it's probably something that you and I and a lot of us had never even really considered, because we never thought anybody could be that evil. But believe me, there are totally soulless, totally evil people in the world that don't care about whether you live or die. They just want money. And let me just add, that's actually one of the saving graces with these things, is that these are criminal gangs, and that's all they want is money. So if you just don't engage with them, if they call you on the phone and you hang up, they can't do anything. Because they only make money if people engage with them. So the big action takeaway from this has got to be, don't engage with these people, and for God's sake, don't send them money. Do not ever give in to anybody's demands or anybody's threats or whatnot. If you want to report it to the police, report it to the FBI, that's certainly something that you can do. But the urgent thing to do in the moment is hang up, don't respond, don't reply. I know that it's kind of been this thing in recent years where people do these things where they, kind of engage with the scammers and try to make them appear foolish and whatnot. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're dealing with criminal gangs here. You don't want any back and forth with them at all. At all. So, I hope I've scared you. What I think we all need to do, and I'm 100% serious about this, I think every one of us needs to take a little bit of a step back from all of this electronic media. I think in a way, things are getting a little bit out of hand. I think we just need to take a bit of a break from all of this. I'm not saying don't use it, but I am saying take a step back and realize and understand maybe all this social media and internet and ability to communicate so easily with people around the world maybe is not all that it's cracked up to be. Maybe we just need to take a little bit of a step back, think about it, think about where we are with this and what we want to do with this. And I think also to cut back. I've had apps on my phone that really I don't use, things like Snapchat and whatnot. I deleted them, but of course, before I deleted them, I deleted my account. And that actually feels good. It feels good to get rid of stuff like that, because you're potentially opening yourself up to problems. Now, let me just add too, I don't believe in living in fear, but I do believe in living sensibly. The internet has opened up a whole realm of possibilities that we could not have fathomed, we could not have conceived of in years past. And it really is a whole new world. And things are happening and things are changing so fast these days, we almost don't have time to keep up with it. So I think a bit of a step back, rethink it, and just be safe. All right? That's all I want to say. Have a great day. Be safe. Be sensible. I'll talk to you later.